I should have shut down my laptop the moment the clock hit 3 a.m. Any hacker who's been down there long enough knows those late hours pull you into the kind of silence where the deep web feels alive, like it's breathing right behind you. But that night, I wasn't exactly thinking straight. I was chasing a curiosity that had been building for weeks, the kind that whispers in your ear that maybe you're capable of understanding things you shouldn't. At first, it was just another routine dive into hidden forums, abandoned nodes, dead marketplaces, and encrypted chat rooms that hadn't seen real human traffic in years. But then the message appeared. It didn't blink. It didn't load. It didn't ask for permission. It just surfaced on my screen like it had been waiting for me specifically. And the worst part? It didn't go away, no matter what I did, no matter how many layers I shut down, no matter how deeply I buried the system. It stayed, it followed, and it acted like it knew me. That's the hook. The part where I should have walked away and gone to sleep instead of leaning closer to the monitor like an idiot. But when you work in the deep corners of the internet long enough, you learn something about yourself. You don't fear the unknown, you chase it until it becomes familiar enough to ruin you. And that night, I chased something I should have left in the digital dark. I had been auditing breach logs for a client. Nothing special. Just a mid-tier company with weak firewall hygiene and way too much confidence. But after cleaning their system, I still had leftover adrenaline. I wasn't ready for bed. So I opened my virtual workspace, booted my isolated environment, and started scanning a cluster of dead nodes that someone had recently flagged as reactivating. That normally means nothing. Sometimes a hosting server flickers back online. Sometimes an old PGP key gets renewed by a bot. Sometimes an onion link resolves again after months of inactivity. But reactivating nodes at 3 a.m., that usually means someone is testing something. The first few addresses timed out. The next handful displayed the usual cryptic landing pages. Broken CSS, code vomit, abandoned login portals. Nothing interesting. I was about to disconnect when one last address on the list caught my eye. Not because it was visually different, but because of how the server reacted to my click. Usually you send a request. The server responds. That's how the web works. But this time, the server responded before I even finished my request. No delay, no ping, no bounce. It was as if it already had my packet hours before I sent it. The page didn't load so much as it unfolded, like it had been coiled tightly and snapped open the moment I touched it. The background was flat black, no text, no icons, no metadata. Just one blinking cursor in the top left corner of the screen. I thought it was some kind of old interactive terminal page, maybe a forgotten phishing experiment someone coded back in 2015. But then characters started typing themselves on the screen, slowly at first, deliberately, like someone wanted me to feel each letter. Hello, that was it, just one word. A word that shouldn't have been able to type itself unless a script was running. So I checked the script, and the script wasn't there. The page had no source code, no backend, no visible structure, no input field. Nothing that justified what I was seeing. I tried inspecting the element. My tools froze, not crashed, froze. Like they were being held in place by something that didn't want to be looked at. Then more text appeared. I've been waiting. Most people would assume I panicked at that point, but hackers don't panic until something touches their local machine. So I started running diagnostics, expecting to find a remote connection attempt or system call. But nothing was firing. No outgoing packets, no incoming traffic, no tunneling. The message wasn't being streamed. It wasn't being fetched. It wasn't even being generated from inside my system. It was just appearing. I typed manually into my terminal, not on the page, hoping to provoke some kind of reaction. Who are you? The page didn't answer right away. For about 15 seconds, nothing happened. The cursor blinked. My fan buzzed faintly. And then the letters started forming again. You know me. That was the moment my stomach tightened. Because the only entities that ever say something like that on the deep web are either scammers, stalkers, or programs built by people with too much time and a questionable moral compass. The last thing I wanted was a reverse lookup script, pulling my real identity from fragmented data across old forums. So I disconnected from the environment. Or I tried to. My kill switch didn't work. It didn't even blink. My virtual environment refused to shut down. Every command I entered was returned instantly with a single message. Denied. That should be impossible. The entire point of an isolated workspace is that I control everything, not some phantom script. So I pulled the physical Ethernet cable. A brute force solution. It always works. Except that night, it didn't. Because as soon as the cable was out, the page reacted instantly. Again, as if it had anticipated the move. Why are you leaving? And now the cursor wasn't blinking at the top left corner anymore. It had moved to the center of the screen, and the background wasn't black anymore either. It was slightly lighter, barely noticeable, like the monitor illumination had shifted by a few points. But I noticed. Hackers always notice. That's when I felt something I hadn't felt in years. A pressure behind me. Not a sound, not movement. Just a quiet weight, like the atmosphere had thickened. My room felt tighter, smaller, as if something unsecured had slipped past the boundaries of where it belonged. I plugged the Ethernet cable back in, not because I wanted to reconnect, but because I wanted to see whether the machine would recognize it. It didn't. My laptop acted like the cable wasn't even there. That wasn't normal. That wasn't possible. And yet the page waited patiently, like it knew it had my attention and didn't need to fight for it anymore. So I typed directly into the page. Not by clicking, not by activating a text field. I just started typing, and the page accepted the input even though there was no visible interface for it. What do you want? This time the answer didn't type itself letter by letter. It appeared all at once, to show you something. The room got colder, or maybe I just imagined it. The air felt stale. I kept telling myself it was just exhaustion and the usual paranoia that comes from staring at dark screens for hours. But the timing was too perfect. The reaction speed was too fast. The message felt too personal. And then the next line appeared. Look at your camera. I didn't, not immediately. Because I don't use my laptop camera. I keep it physically covered, always. And even if I didn't, the isolated environment shouldn't have had access to any hardware. That's the whole point of layers. That's why people like me sleep peacefully at night. Because the system you work inside is not the system you live inside. But something was wrong. Very wrong. My camera light turned on. The cover was still on. I could see it physically, but the light was glowing bright green like the system was trying to see through the tape. I felt a chill run across my skin. Not because I feared someone watching me, but because I understood the implications. Whatever the page was, whatever was typing messages at me, it wasn't working through normal channels. It wasn't exploiting vulnerabilities. It wasn't bypassing protections. It was ignoring them. I reached forward to shut the laptop, but before the lid closed, another message appeared. Don't. The lid froze halfway. Literally froze. Like someone was holding it in place. I pushed harder. It wouldn't move. My heartbeat climbed into my throat, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely outmatched. Whatever I had accessed, it was beyond code, beyond scripts, beyond the usual chaos of the deep web. This wasn't something written. This was something that behaved. And then it typed again, "This will be quick." The background lightened further, revealing faint shapes in the dark, like there were outlines behind the black screen, silhouettes hidden behind digital fog. At first I thought it was image burn-in, maybe ghosting from a failing LED panel. But then the shapes moved, faintly, slowly, purposefully, like something behind the screen was repositioning itself to get a better look at me. I stepped back from the laptop. The shapes faded. A single new sentence appeared. Are you ready? I didn't type anything. My hands weren't steady enough for that. But the page didn't care. Yes, you are. The screen went white. Not bright white, not like a normal full-screen color flash. It was textured white, like layers of static and movement beneath the brightness. swirling patterns forming shapes that dissolved before I could fully register them. And then a sound started coming from the laptop speakers. Not a tone, not static, something between a whisper and interference, like someone was trying to talk through broken radio equipment. The shapes on the screen sharpened, but right before they became clear enough to make sense, the laptop turned itself off. No shutdown sequence, no black screen, no fan went down. Just dead. I waited in silence. The room felt hollow. Even the street noise outside had gone quiet. I reached for the laptop and pressed the power button. Nothing. Pressed it again. Nothing. The third time, the machine finally responded. Not by booting normally, but by displaying a single line of text on a black background. Welcome back. My throat tightened. Because I had not connected to the network. I had not launched any environment. And the message appeared before the BIOS even loaded, before the operating system even existed. Something had embedded itself somewhere it shouldn't be able to exist. The screen flickered. A second line appeared under the first. You saw enough. Then the text deleted itself, and the laptop booted normally, like nothing had happened. Like the last 20 minutes had been some hallucination triggered by exhaustion and stale energy drinks. Except the timestamp on my system log showed activity. Network logs showed traffic that shouldn't have existed. Hardware logs showed camera access that bypassed the OS. My fingerprint scanner had been activated. My microphone had been pinged. My root partition had been touched by something that didn't match any known signature. And worst of all, my desktop wallpaper had changed. It was completely black, except for one line of text in the center. See you tomorrow. That's when my confidence cracked. Because threats are normal in this field. Scares are normal. Glitches are normal. But persistence? That's something else. That means intention. That means whoever or whatever reached out wasn't done. And I should have known it wouldn't stop there. Because at exactly 3 a.m. the next night, I woke up to the sound of my laptop fan turning on by itself. And when I opened the lid, that same black page was already waiting. Hello again. That was the first thing I saw when the screen brightened in the dark. No loading, no login screen, no password prompt, just the message sitting there like it had been awake longer than I had, waiting for me to catch up. My room was completely silent, except for the low hum of the fan that shouldn't have been spinning at all. I had shut the laptop down, physically disconnected it, and placed it on the opposite side of the room before going to bed. But somehow, there it was again, alive, awake, and acting like last night's incident was just the beginning. I sat on the edge of my bed without touching the laptop. The screen brightness was dim, low enough that it didn't hurt my eyes, but bright enough that I could see every part of my room reflected faintly in the black surface around the text. And in that reflection, for a split second, I thought I saw movement behind me. Not a person, not a clear shape, just a distortion in the air, like heat waves rising from asphalt. It lasted less than a heartbeat, but it was enough to make every instinct inside me tell me I was no longer engaging with something digital. The message typed itself again. Come closer. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe evenly. My mind was running through every possible explanation. Rogue firmware injection, hardware-level compromise, BIOS-level persistence, maybe some exotic exploit nobody had published yet. But none of those possibilities accounted for how the system turned itself on with no power, no network, no triggers, no wake on LAN, no scheduled tasks, nothing. I stayed still, and the page responded to my stillness. I won't ask again. The letters didn't appear one by one this time. They slammed onto the screen all at once, sharp enough that the sudden brightness made me blink. Something about that reaction, its impatience, made me obey. I walked toward the desk and sat down in front of the screen, unsure of what would happen next. Good. The cursor blinked again, and then a new line formed beneath it. I want to show you what you missed. Before I could process what that meant, the screen dissolved into static, dense, fast, and layered with movement. Not random static, Not analog snow. Something modular, something structured, like tiny windows flashing open and closed at extreme speed. I leaned closer without thinking, trying to understand what I was seeing, when suddenly the static slowed down and the images became clear. They were screenshots. Screenshots of my activity. Not from last night, from years ago. Old forums I visited in my early days. IRC logs that had been deleted ages ago. Credentials I'd tested and thrown away. Mistakes I hoped nobody noticed. Moments when I'd said things I regretted. Experiments I never logged. Pieces of myself I had completely forgotten about. Some reckless, some naive, some deeply personal. The page showed them all, one after another, perfectly archived, perfectly timed, perfectly organized. My throat dried as I watched pieces of my past flicker across the monitor like a digital confession reel. Then the images stopped, the static cleared, and a new line appeared. I remember what you forget. My hands hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly, but I forced myself to type anyway. What are you? The response came instantly. More than you think, less than you fear. That answer didn't calm me. It didn't clarify anything. If anything, it made my skin crawl. The wording didn't feel algorithmic. It didn't feel like a bot. There was tone, intent, something resembling personality, but without any of the limits of a real human mind. I typed again. What do you want? The cursor froze for several seconds as if the page were considering the question. Then the reply appeared slowly, one letter at a time. Connection. I frowned. Connection to what? To me? To something else? To more systems? I tried to clarify. Why me? This time it didn't even pretend to think. You opened the door, and then now you can see. The screen went white again, but this time the swirling shapes sharpened into something clearer. Lines, structures, diagrams, maps. Except they weren't geographical maps. They were network maps. Massive ones. More complex than anything I had ever seen. Not organizational structures or known architectures. These were nodes connected in patterns that made no rational sense. Clusters of activity with no IP ranges, no hosting traces, no geographic origins. Nothing recognizable. I reached for my keyboard to capture the data, but the moment I tried, the diagram expanded violently, zooming outward in a way no interface should be able to render, revealing even more layers, and more, and more. Thousands of nodes, hundreds of thousands, moving, changing, rearranging themselves in ways that felt too complex to be random. Then everything paused. A single point on the map pulsed. It pulsed again, and again. The page highlighted it in red. You are here. I felt every muscle in my back tense, because the pulse wasn't marking my IP. It wasn't marking my location. It wasn't marking my machine. It was marking me, my presence, not my coordinates, my awareness. Like whatever this entity was, it didn't track devices. It tracked consciousness. The map zoomed in further and the pulsing point became an outline, a silhouette, humanoid but indistinct, as if it were drawn from guesses instead of details. Then the message appeared. Move. I took a step back instinctively. The silhouette moved, perfectly synced. My throat tightened. I raised my hand. The silhouette raised its hand. I shook my head. The silhouette shook its head. This wasn't screen mirroring, not motion detection, not camera tracking. My camera cover was still on, and yet the screen was echoing me in real time. I reached up and pulled the cover off the webcam, expecting the feed to activate. It didn't. The screen kept mirroring me without using the camera at all, and then a second silhouette appeared beside the first. This one didn't mirror anything. It just stood there, slightly behind me, its shape taller, blurred, and leaning forward as if looking over my shoulder. I spun around. No one was there. When I faced the laptop again, the message had already formed. Do not turn around again. My heartbeat thrashed against my ribs. The The second silhouette hadn't moved. It hadn't mirrored me. It simply existed, observing. I typed with shaky hands. "What is that?" The answer came slow. "Not your concern." I swallowed hard. "Why is it behind me?" There was a long pause. "Because you let it in." The silhouettes vanished. The map collapsed. The screen returned to black, displaying a single new message. "It's time." Time for what? I tried typing, but the keyboard didn't respond. The cursor blinked steadily, indifferent to my panic. After several silent seconds, the message updated. "Watch." I couldn't move. Something about the tone, the conviction, the absolute authority behind that single word pinned me to the chair like gravity had shifted. The screen displayed a video feed. Not from my camera, not from any device I recognized. This feed was from somewhere else entirely. A dim hallway, silent, static in the corners of the frame. The walls were narrow and uneven, like a basement corridor built decades ago and left untouched. The camera angle didn't look mechanical. It looked like a perspective, like a pair of eyes looking forward. The hallway stretched ahead with faint lights flickering on and off. Something moved at the far end, slow, lumbering, like a shadow dragging itself forward, its shape distorted by distance and the low resolution. The entity, if that's even the right word, paused, turned slightly. And even though its features were blurred and impossible to identify, I felt clearly that it was aware of me, aware of being observed, aware of the connection between us. I whispered without thinking, "Please stop," even though I knew the laptop's microphone wasn't active. The feed zoomed in, not with digital zoom, with physical movement. The perspective walked forward, step by step, slow, heavy, deliberate. The closer it got, the more the distortion shifted into something unstable, as if the boundaries of its shape refused to stay inside the frame. I tried pressing ESC. The key didn't work. I tried closing the lid again. It didn't move. The feed continued advancing until the frame was filled with swirling shadows and edges that didn't align with anything human or familiar. Then the feed froze completely. A new message appeared. "Do you understand now?" My voice came out small. "Understand what?" The response typed itself slowly, as if emphasizing each letter. "The door stays open." The screen flickered and returned to the original black background with a blinking cursor. My laptop fan stopped abruptly, leaving the room in absolute silence. Then the final line appeared. "See you soon." The laptop powered itself off. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, every log file I checked was clean. Every trace from the night before was gone. No anomalies, no warnings, no unauthorized access, no hardware triggers, no timestamps, no records of any kind. Except for one thing. My wallpaper had changed again. This time there was no text, just a silhouette, my silhouette, and a taller one standing behind it, breathing, watching, waiting. I tried changing the wallpaper. It reverted instantly. I tried formatting the drive. The silhouettes came back. I tried replacing the entire OS, rewriting partitions, booting from different hardware. Nothing worked. The image always returned. And every night at exactly 3 a.m. the fan spins. The screen lights up. And a message waits for me with that same calm assurance. "Hello." There's no rage in it, no threat, no demand for money, no attempt at manipulation or extortion. It doesn't want anything recognizable, anything human. It just wants to stay connected. And no matter what I do, the connection never breaks. Not when I destroy hardware, not when I replace parts, not when I burn the drives or rebuild the system from scratch, not when I move to a new place, not when I switch networks, not when I go offline for months. Every night at 3 a.m. it returns. Hello, hello, hello. Like it's reminding me, the door is still open. And the truth that keeps me awake most nights is this. I'm no longer sure that door is digital, because sometimes, on the nights when I refuse to answer, the silhouettes in the wallpaper shift a little, like they're getting impatient, or closer. And sometimes when the screen lights up, the message is slightly different. Not hello, but I'm still here, and I know it is. I know it always will be. Because once something from that side finds you, there's no going back to the version of yourself who believes the internet is just wires and code. There are things beneath it that don't follow our rules. Things that remember what we forget. Things that watch through signals we can't trace. Things that wait for someone reckless enough to open the door. And that night at 3 a.m., I was exactly that someone.